With the Edmonton Oilers rattling off several convincing wins in a row against playoff teams, who better than the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers to give them one last measuring stick game on today's very special crossover edition of Locked On Oilers?
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special crossover edition of Locked On Oilers and Locked On Panthers. I am Nick Zararis, the host of Locked On Oilers. That is Armando Velez, the host of Locked On Panthers. We want to thank everyone who is making our shows the first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers and Locked On Panthers, they're the part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to battle around a lot of different topics, only so much we can get to in 30 minutes. Armando, my friend, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Like I said in the pre-production meeting, outside of the Miami Dolphins ending their playoff hopes after losing today, everything is well here in Florida. Just although the Panthers have lost 2 in a row, it's still a great, exciting December matchup for this Stanley Cup final rematch.
So let's start there. Obviously, two teams, when you play each other in the Cup final, they're going to naturally be paired together. You know, it's kind of like draft picks where if you go first and second in a draft, your careers are going to get compared the rest of the way. For the Panthers, after winning, would you say there's any discernible difference as far as like the attitude, the energy, or is like the standard just where it is to the point that, yeah, we won, but we would like to do it again?
As far as the fan base and everything off the ice, it's a lot different. I mean, unanimous lease extension with the county, debts paid off from the arena, from the ownership, projects developing around the area to make it more of a community feel to it. 3 spots up in franchise value from 29 to 26 and getting awarded an outdoor game and also having their own streaming platform for them. Then that's as far as everything, as far as building the product. But as far as the on the ice product, I mean, it's basically business as usual for the Panthers, and just starting a new season. They know that they got to earn it once again if they want to repeat as champions. So at this point, they have the same identical record through 31 games going into this matchup for them against the Edmonton Oilers. So, I mean, just they look to be right on pace again to once again compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
And the interesting thing, anytime you lose a championship round, it presents a really opportunistic kind of binary choice where you either double down on what got you there, or you want to take that step back and say, well, what didn't work? What about our identity? What about what we wanted to do didn't work? And very clearly, based on the decisions the Oilers made in the offseason, they felt like they didn't score enough. They felt like we need more offense. So we're going to take some money out of our defense. You know, we're going to trade Cody Ceci. We're going to let Desharnais go. And we're going to spend money on Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson on the logic that they might not be that much better than Ryan McLeod and Warren Fogle, but they're slightly better. And that goal differential, and, you know, the Cup final came down to 1 goal in a Game 7, as close as you can get. That's the logic. And for the first month of the season, I can't lie to you, Armando, I was very nervous because things were not going particularly well that first month. It's in the outline. You wrote Zach Hyman was not scoring particularly well on your end. Carter Verhaeghe had a rough first month of the season, couldn't score, but it was very hairy for that first month. And since then, things have kind of turned around. They've settled into who they're going to be this year. But anytime you lose a championship round, it really presents kind of a gut check. And the Oilers seem, at least so far, to have withstood said gut check.
Yeah, and also let's not forget some of the pieces that they lost in the offseason due to the offer sheets from the St. Louis Blues of them for Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg for them. I mean, of course, for Stan Bowman, the best decision was to not match them due to what's coming up for who they had to pay, and an Evan Bouchard or Connor McDavid coming up for them, and you know. and the fact that the story for the Oilers was because they turned it around this season, there's a little bit of a confidence there on their end that they were going to do it once again for them. And luckily for Edmonton, they're still on their way up. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now, still battling for the Pacific Division for them. And really, the Panthers had their fair share of a gut check going from losing in 2023 against Vegas Golden Knights to the very next season. I mean, it really sparked that motivation for them, especially when they were going into that season injured with Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour going into the year. This time around, they not only completing the entire playoff round with healthy, but going into the next season really pumped up and also with a lot of energy there and getting off to a great start. Although they've had a little bit of a stretch, they lost 6 of 7 at one point. They're currently on a 2-game skid right now, getting shut out in back-to-back games in Calgary and Vancouver. But really, for the Edmonton Oilers and the Panthers, it really seems as if they're kind of on the same storyline as far as the regular season through 30 games, as far as really low lows in the beginning, except with the Edmonton Oilers, no coach firing this time around.
Yeah, last year they pulled that hatch. You know, you only get to do that once as a general manager, where you do the desperation, we need to do something here to save our skins type deal. And the one last question I wanted to get in this first segment, because I do think this is a unique perspective that the Panthers have, is that they win the President's Trophy, they go out early, and they take a real honest look at their team and say, we're good, but we can find a way to get better. They execute the Tkachuk trade, which now in hindsight is about as slam dunk as it gets, as far as you would do that every single time. What do you think it means to a team where you have that kind of season and then you follow it up by going to the Cup final? Sure, plucky upsets the entire way, couple nice bounces and some overtimes, but you get there and then you lose. And then the third year you go all the way. Do you think there's a value in having those difficult and those painful playoff losses, not only for the guys on the team, but for the decision makers themselves, as far as saying we're a good team, but we can get better?
Yeah. And sometimes in order to get through, you have to go through a little bit of pain. And I mean, maybe that's the Edmonton Oilers with everything that they went through in the last two years for them, for that group. And for the Panthers, it really came down to what is it a proper identity for them in order to win? I mean, they were a high scoring offense and they changed their style just like that with Matthew Tkachuk coming in, and then of course a coaching change in Paul Maurice. I mean, Andrew Burnett did well for what he was given for to him at the time there, and we hope the best for him as he's struggling right now with the Nashville Predators right now. But for the Panthers, it really came down to really a self-evaluation. And Bill Zito, he's never been he hasn't been hesitant to pull a necessary trigger when he needs to. I mean, we've seen 4 first-round picks traded away in a matter of 12 months for him in a 4-year span in order to just go for it. 2 of them were for rentals, and Giroux and Sherratt in that year. But it's funny because doing it again a few months later after going for it, I was scratching my head. It's like, okay, if you're gonna go for it, then you're all in. You're committed to this. You're married to this. And everything in between. And for the Panthers, it was just really about adding on to those 2 guys in Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov. And there's already starting to put the pieces and bricks together when they traded for Sam Reinhart the season before, trading for Sam Bennett, who's up for a contract this upcoming season, who's been off to a great start with 13 goals, and really just putting everything together. It felt like that Matthew Tkachuk was really that final piece to the puzzle for the Panthers there. And hey, 2 playoff runs of Sergei Bobrovsky being hot, especially in the first one. He really mostly carried the Panthers on the first one. Didn't really have to do as much of the work on the second go round for the Panthers. But still, it was really about adding those final just pieces to a team that was on their way up in the upward trajectory.
I couldn't agree with you more as far as the value in those experiences, because even if we're not talking about it from a front office perspective, for the guys on the team itself, that type of adversity is really the only way you learn to get better as a professional athlete, because you need that. We have historically seen those teams that have the really easy regular seasons, when they get in the rock fights in the playoffs, that's when they wilt, and for the Panthers to be able to pull off that trajectory. And lest we forget, the Oilers are not that far removed from being a consistent playoff miss or first round exit. They had the conference final appearance a couple of years ago against Colorado on Colorado's way to the Cup final. They lost to Vegas on Vegas's way to the Cup final. It takes a gradual incline. And the last thing I want to get in before we take our first break is that the Oilers are pot committed now. You said before that the Panthers had burned 4 first-round picks in pursuit of their Stanley Cup. It's kind of the same deal here. The Oilers are not in a position where they are going to subtract from their team to be worried about next year, the year after, the year after, the year after, because it's about right now. You got McDavid at 27, you got Draisaitl at 28, Bouchard is still young and cheap. But this is your window. This is your opportunity. So while it might give you pause that they're not picking very high or picking in the first round at all, they can't really be worried about 3-4 years down the road from now based on where they are right now. It's the same deal with the Panthers. We're going to talk about it in the next segment after this break, but they had to make really tough decisions in this offseason as far as sustaining their window. And that's how we're going to tease our next segment. We will be right back. Before recording today's episode of Locked On Oilers and Locked On Panthers with Armando, I was at the Baltimore Ravens New York Giants game in 35 degrees. I saw Lamar Jackson throw for more touchdowns than incompletions. I got my tickets to go with one of my best friends from our friends over at Gametime with some of the best features in the ticket buying experience. Features like the panoramic seat view, so you know the view from your seat in the app before you buy the tickets, the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, and Gametime ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can enjoy NFL action at America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. In the NFL, Monday Night Football is a little light. NFC North, Bears, Vikings, that's not great. Thursday night, though, Broncos, Chargers, both teams pushing for playoff spots. The Broncos, 3-point underdogs on the road, heading to LA to take on the Chargers. Saturday afternoon football. Well, college football playoff games might be going on. Steelers, Ravens 6.5-point favorites. Real old school smash mouth AFC North football. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out with Armando and I here on this crossover edition of Locked On Oilers and Locked On Panthers. So, Armando, walk me through the Panthers offseason, the decisions they had to make, who they prioritized keeping, who got the big contracts, and who ended up moving on.
Yeah, big loss was Brandon Montour for him signing a big deal with the Seattle Kraken at 7 years, $49 million total. And for the Panthers, right before free agency hit at midnight, they signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal, just north of $8 million. Which, hey, the Florida tax is definitely something that works in the Panthers' advantage for them in order to keep their players. I mean, I'm not going to deny that that's a fact for them, and thankfully for him, rewarding him after getting the Stanley Cup winning goal for them. It's going to be a group that's going to be together for a long time, and of course, extending Anton Lundell to a 6-year deal, which will expire at the same time as Barkov and Tkachuk. So there's a lot of resetting of cap space that the Panthers are going to have even in the coming years, and all the no move clauses are going to go to modified no trades basically at the same time in the future for the Panthers, a few years down the line for them. And for the Panthers, it was really about adding on guys on the cheap who want to come in and win a cup for them. And really guys like an Adam Boquist, Jesper Boquist, Nate Schmidt for the Panthers. Those are guys who are added to the Panthers. AJ Greer, who's the only guy who basically got more than a 1-year deal for the Panthers. And he's got a guy who's a really hard-nosed guy who people would love on their fourth line as a really tough player for them. But it was growing pains for the Panthers at first, especially on the especially losing Barkov and Tkachuk for a 6 to 8 game period. But their power play was really firing for them, and even lately they had a little bit of a boost in their power play with Ekblad running it for them and scoring over 50% on their power play. So really, that has been just fine for the Panthers. Ekblad is logging more minutes, so that's a little bit of something that I would like to see less of. But hey, it's working for the Panthers so far in the penalty kill. It's not number one as far as road penalty kill in the NHL, but they're getting shorthanded goals, so their net penalty kill is getting up to second in the NHL, just right behind the New York Rangers for them. So really, they're making up some of those power play goals against with getting them on shorthanded, which Sam Reinhart has really been a big factor shorthanded for the Florida Panthers. And really, that's why you give him that contract, because of the two-way play, him and Barkov paired together and interchanging on the wing for them. It's for the Panthers, it's really a line that's going to be facing off against the opposition, especially if they have home ice throughout the postseason. They're going to have those opportunities when they do get the last change.
Edmonton's offseason was very uneven because they had an interim general manager after Ken Holland's contract expired. So Jeff Jackson made the first round pick at the draft. He signed the guys the first day of free agency. Then they went the entirety of July with Broberg and Holloway as unsigned restricted free agents where they had the rights. They hire Stan Bowman in mid-August to be the general manager full-time. Those offer sheets happen a few weeks later. This is all against the backdrop of Draisaitl extension being worked out. This is against the backdrop of Evan Bouchard being eligible to negotiate an extension, which ultimately didn't come to fruition. Connor McDavid got married during this period of time, so a lot of guys not really in hockey mode. And everything happened really fast because after the offer sheets, they had a week. They decided we're not matching. And then very quickly they realized, well, we can't be cap compliant with the roster we've signed. So we dumped Cody Ceci to the Sharks. We turned him into Ty Emberson, who we feel reasonably good about and is definitely getting better the more he plays. But you got to look at him at face value in the fact that he's a 24-year-old who had 27 career NHL games coming into the season on a really bad Sharks team last year. The Sharks picked first overall, and dropping a kid like that with really no NHL experience onto a team whose expectation is to win the Stanley Cup, that just doesn't happen. You go and look at the recent Stanley Cup winners, especially on defense. All of those guys are at least 27, 28 years old. It is very rare for young guys, especially on defense, to play crucial roles on cup winners. And that's just the way the NHL is kind of skewed right now. And I don't know if that's like a hard and fast thing. I want to do more investigation of that. But the Oilers have made a really calculated risk on, we think we can get by with this defense. We're going to try and get to the trade deadline as best we can. We're going to drop another defenseman in here, and we'll figure it out. And that's kind of been the message, I would say, from the front office and the coaching staff is, we'll figure this out. We have a lot of talent. We're not sure how it's going to fit. Podkolzin started the year on the fourth line, and we're going to talk about him in the next segment as far as that being the Oilers' best defensive forward line. The Oilers got Leon Draisaitl playing really good defense right now, and part of that is Podkolzin. So we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to hone in on Oilers Panthers in the present, a little bit less reflective looking back, right after our final break of today's show. So be sure to stick around. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending, or the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, the best feature is the subscription tracker. I've subscribed to so many subscription services over the years, I've forgotten quite a few of them. With Rocket Money, I've saved a ton. Plus, their goals feature, I've been able to set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out here on this Monday crossover edition of Locked On Oilers, Locked On Panthers. All right, Armando, tee us up. Give the Oiler fans who are listening to this episode an understanding of where the Panthers are at right now. How have their last couple games gone? What's been working? What hasn't been working?
Yeah, so the Panthers, the last two, this road trip for them in regulation, they've only scored one goal, getting a 2-1 win in Seattle based on a shootout by Alexander Barkov, who missed the last game against the Calgary Flames due to an illness. So I'm going to say he's maybe day-to-day for the Panthers here when it comes to this matchup for the Stanley Cup final rematch. But yeah, really for the Panthers, it's been an inability to get to the net front for them and get their second chance opportunities. They especially struggled with that against the Vancouver Canucks just recently, and really it came down to untimely turnovers in their own end. I mean, Dmitry Kulikov was responsible for two of them as far as the rush chances, and then Spencer Knight just being frozen on the last two goals for the Florida Panthers on Saturday night, where there was a shot that went 5-hole and he didn't even move to get into the butterfly position, then one from distance on the half wall towards the end of the game against the Calgary Flames. But coming into this one for the Panthers, still second in the division, 2 points right behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, who just won tonight against the Buffalo Sabres after scoring 3 goals in 3 minutes, in less than 3 minutes time for them. But coming into this one, Nick, it's crazy. The Panthers have played in Edmonton a total of 12 times since 2013. They've only lost twice in regulation, and both of them happen to be in the Stanley Cup final. Their 9 regular season matchups prior to that, they're 6-0-3. They struggle on the West Coast in Western Canada, but Edmonton, weirdly, they play well in. So I'm going to give the floor to you of the Edmonton Oilers coming into this one, because I'm seeing 5 consecutive wins for Connor McDavid and company.
5 straight wins. The one loss was a 1-0 game against Vegas where both teams had like 21 shots on goal each. And the one Vegas goal, Bouchard went down to Snow Angel to break up the pass, and he got his body in the lane. But unfortunately, he blocked the pass right back to the shooter who recovered the puck, and Skinner was already going post to post because he assumed the pass was going to get through. So the net was wide open. That was the only goal in the game. That Edmonton lost to Vegas. They're 8-2-0 in their last 10. They've been absolutely humming, especially on special teams. Their penalty kill has been lights out over the last few weeks. Considering where it was to start the season, after the first month of the season, the Oilers were killing off like 63% of penalties, like as the worst percentage in the entire league, giving up a power play goal every single game. Through the first 10 games, they conceded 11 power play goals against. They were unconscionably bad. That has bounced back positively. Zach Hyman, since coming back from injury, has really started to put the puck in the back of the net. And most importantly and most decisively, they've got the Draisaitl and McDavid lines going at 5-on-5. So, yes, the Oilers are very dependent on their special teams if they're going to go very far come April, May, June. But in the regular season especially, if they've got Connor and Leon's lines going separate from each other where they don't need to play together, that opens up so much more for their lineup, especially this year where Leon's playing such lights-out defense that if you have those two, And then all you need is the occasional Jeff Skinner, Adam Henry, Connor Brown, Corey Perry, Derek Ryan, Matthias Janmark. If those total six forwards only need to give you one goal every other game, it becomes a lot easier to see the path for success here. The first month of the season, they couldn't score at all. They were shooting like 4%. They couldn't score on the power play. I want to say they were 5 for maybe 34 through the first 10 games, if I remember my episode from Friday correctly. But the last few weeks, they have gotten every single puck that didn't go in for the first month of the season to go in. They pummeled Vegas. They pummeled Minnesota. And I think both of those teams are good teams, but I think they both had about as bad a performance you could possibly have. And that's really, I feel like, a sign that I know the Oilers are playing well is if the other team is making mistakes and the Oilers are putting them in the net, that's generally a sign they're playing pretty well. One question I had for you about Florida so far this year: how do you feel about the way they've managed piecing together the defense losing Montour? Because obviously he plays such an important role for them over the last handful of seasons. I know you mentioned who they brought in as far as free agents, auditions, whatever. How do you feel about how they've gone about filling that spot in the lineup?
Yeah, Dmitry Kulikov is playing a spot up for the Panthers, and really for him, it's for the first time in a while for them. They've actually been switching up the D pairs a little bit here and there. At times they're putting Mikkola and Nate Schmidt together, Kulikov, Balinskis, occasionally putting Adam Boquist as part of the mix for the Panthers. So it's been the first time experimenting for that. And the Panthers, based on their foundation, ever since this coaching staff has been placed together, they realize the foundation for them is to have guys consistently together to mesh, and even if it takes a while for them to get to that point, that they stick them together for them. But they know that the bill comes due whenever you have success and a guy is going to get paid. So the Panthers have to get creative with what they have. I mean, they have $2.4 million in deadline cap space coming up for them, so maybe that's something that they could use as far as a third pair right hand shot defenseman that could be placed in the lineup, and then maybe put Adam Boquist on that second pair with Nico Mikkola, because I really feel that Boquist's ceiling could be with Nico Mikkola, and maybe someone of a two-way defenseman who's going to be on that second pair for maybe like a Henry Jokiharju of the Buffalo Sabres for them. And maybe that's something that the Panthers could use for them as far as the trade deadline. And really, they've been more taking chances in the neutral zone, being up into play, which has led to quite a few of their rush chances against for them, especially lately for them. So it really comes out. It's really been some growing pains as far as the defense for the Panthers, and really the goaltending has been a little up and down, shaky from time to time. You see Spencer Knight have a great start, and then sometimes he comes back down to earth. Sometimes you'll see Spencer Knight even give up 5 goals in a win, like he did recently against the Philadelphia Flyers. But sometimes, and even in back-to-back games, you'll see Sergei Bobrovsky give up 1 in consecutive games after the birth of his second daughter, and getting a little bit of that boost for him. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, a little bit for the defensive side of the game for the Panthers.
It's weird because on paper, that's definitely the weak side of this Oilers lineup. If you were to lay out every guy, the defense is definitely the weak link here. They're asking a lot of guys who haven't really done this before. Troy Stecher hasn't been an NHL regular in like 4 years, where he's been asked to be an every game player. Ty Emberson has never done this on a regular level before. Brett Kulak's playing about a minute and a half more per game than he ever has in his career. They're asking Ekholm and Bouchard to both play about a minute and a half more than they have in years past. Most of that is 5-on-5 time. They've bled away a few of the minutes that would have gone to Cody Ceci and Nurse last year, and a few of the minutes that would have went to Kulak and Broberg from last year, and given them to their big guys. And that's been my big concern all year, is that are you going to be able to run Ekholm and Bouchard 23, 24 minutes a night an entire regular season, and then go on a playoff run? Because that really does start to accumulate. All right, the one last question before we get out of here. What do you feel like is Florida's biggest weakness right now that they need to address?
Oh, man. I I would say maybe I would go back to maybe the defense for them, like I mentioned, for them getting another piece on that decor for them, specifically a right-handed shot. Who, I mean, a few weeks ago I was saying that maybe a guy who could run a power play for them, but they seem at least okay right now for having Ekblad go on the power play, which we don't see Ekblad go to the flank much as we did the last few years. We see him and Barkov just stay at the point together, and then you see a little bit of rotating of Matthew Tkachuk on the right circle, and then Sam Reinhart and Carter Verhaeghe interchanging on the left side for them, and then sometimes Sam Reinhart in the middle for them. But I'm going to say going back to the defense for the Panthers, because I mean, although this regular season hasn't been the best for the goaltending, I mean, I really, when it comes to the postseason, we've seen it before of what Sergei Bobrovsky can do. So not really a concern for me as far as like what his preparation does for the Panthers. But really, that's really the key for the Panthers on what they have to try to build. But hey, maybe it's in-house, and maybe that's just for them something that they have to continue putting together, as the coaching staff is still trying to change up these D pairs and to see what is going to actually work long term.
It's weird because, like, on paper, the Oilers defense is their weak link, but there's a strong argument their defense has played better than their forward group this year. But you wouldn't actually say that, like, hey, I think we need to add another forward. I think for the Oilers, they just need to play better. I think for guys like Nugent-Hopkins, for Jeff Skinner, for Victor Arvidsson, who's been out for a few weeks, he won't play tomorrow night. He's probably not coming back till closer to Christmas. And until they get their offense really kind of clicking, it's hard for me to determine how good they actually are. And I don't feel like anyone has really put together a great first few months of the season. Like, yeah, Winnipeg, Minnesota have good records. Florida's had a few nice moments. The Leafs are decent. The Devils, but nobody feels that good. I don't know if that's just me, but it doesn't feel like anyone is that good. Granted, it's early, but I don't feel that confident in any team so far.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen there hasn't been a team that has taken a huge grip in the NHL ever since Winnipeg went on a little bit of a skid after they went off to their hot start for them. So everything is up for grabs for everyone, even the President's Trophy. I mean, Washington, that was one team that's just impressive for what they've done, especially after losing Ovechkin, who's back on the ice practicing for them. So it's crazy to think who's been stepping up for the Washington Capitals. But I could also argue for the Panthers for just getting more scoring on the third line. Although Anton Lundell has stepped up when Barkov was out earlier this season, he's stepping out. He's playing first line minutes for the Panthers right now, currently, assuming that Barkov is out again for them. And that was a line that really made a difference in the comeback 3-1 against the Boston Bruins, and hopefully, and also in the very next round against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that is hopefully for the Panthers one line that could step up for them when things do go back to normal, because Anton Lundell, paying a decent amount for a third line center, and as a hope that he's going to become the second line center if they decide to not sign Sam Bennett, but we'll see about that. But that's a big contract for a guy who's can be sometimes up and down when it comes to creating offense.
I'm very excited for this game tonight.
Naturally televised.
We're both running it. It'll be nice. I am excited. This is obviously nothing makes up for that. Nothing ever makes up for that. But they have played really well the last week. But it would take so much air out of the balloon if the Oilers came out and laid an egg tonight against Florida after how well they've played over the last 2 weeks, especially against the quality of opponent. They've beaten Tampa Bay, they beat Vegas, they beat Minnesota. The one loss they have in the last the last 9 was to Vegas in a 1-0 game. There's a real opportunity, but that will just about do it for this crossover edition of Locked On Oilers, Locked On Panthers. If you're here for me, for Oilers fans, please go through Armando a subscription. Go follow him on social. Please support your creators. We are all out here in the trenches. We all appreciate each other. We are all friendly with each other. I will talk to you guys tonight after the game against the Panthers, which hopefully the Oilers win. I will talk to you guys then.